everyone. Happy January. Almost February. The time seems to be going so quickly. I am recording with a huge migraine, so I'm going to keep it short and sweet. In this episode, we are finishing up our conversation with Nefertiti Austin, the author of the book Motherhood So White, which is an awesome book. You can get it on Amazon. Nefertiti's book is really about her journey to becoming a mother, and the journey she took, the road she took was through adoption. And in this episode, we are going to be exploring that a little bit more, talking about the adoption process and really, what some of the challenges were and some of the difficult decisions that she had to make. So enjoy. If I'm really interested in knowing what you think of the episode. So please drop me a line, rate the show, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and sometimes, I've gotten spammed by people who just don't have any capacity to understand, the issues that we talk about, and they leave negative comments, or they might review the page and give it like a 1. So if you're enjoying the show, please, check out Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And on Facebook in particular, rate and review, and the same thing for the podcast. So, your support means a lot. I really appreciate it. And I'd love to hear from you. We are going to continue the conversation with Nefertiti Austin.
So I'm coming off a year and a half of working on a project that focused on the overrepresentation of Black kids in care. So in we have a huge problem with it over here, as you guys do in the States too.
Yes.
But and actually I think our numbers are higher than yours. Like in Toronto, for example.
Really?
Yeah, in Toronto, the Black population is 8%, but the number of kids in care is 42%.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really bad. So this project I've been working on has been focused on working with Child Protective Services to get them to recognize the problem, like around anti-Black racism, because they just kind of, a lot of the time, like sometimes kids go up for adoption, parents don't even know, like the system is so messed up. Yeah. And there are chronic issues of poverty and mental health concerns. Those are chronic issues that you find across all kids that are engaged with child welfare, right? Sure. But there's also systemic issues around race. And so everything from how calls are made around Black kids. So the schools here play a big role in that, because they're more likely to call children's services on a Black child for small, stupid things than a white child, right? And then CAS gets involved, and then there might be removal from the home and all that kind of stuff. And so I've been seeing that, and I was thinking about that as I was reading your story, and I wondered also about maybe some of the systemic oppression that you faced as you went through that process. So I know here, so there are two things that bother me. One is that often people will think, oh my God, there's an overrepresentation of Black kids, which means we need more Black foster homes. And I always say, well, no, it's not that simple. It's not that we need less Black kids in care. We need them to stay home. We need them to be with kin. We need the schools to stop over-reporting them. We need the CAS to stop going in and taking the kids. So that's one of the things I was thinking about. And then the second thing was just around the fact, God, I forgot what I was going to say now, but, the adoption process. Okay. So, so there are some kids that are in care that can never go home and do need to find homes, and they're best in culturally and racially matched homes. So they're best matched with someone who looks like them and who's from the same culture as them. Yes. But for Black people, that adoption process, so in your book, here we call it Pride. In your book, you called it PS MAP.
Right.
Yeah. That process for some people, for some Black people in particular, is very strenuous. It is not necessarily designed with us in mind. It's very invasive.
Okay.
So did you find that at all? Like the questions that were asked of you? Like, was there like a cultural sensitivity around the adoption process for you at all?
That's a very good question. I think living in Los Angeles, I would say yes and no. Yes, in the sense that the location of where I took classes had a group of predominantly Black foster adoptive parents, but you could go to another side of town or a foster family agency and it be a different racial, socioeconomic demographic. And so then the pool of the children, of course, are majority children of color. And I don't think enough emphasis is placed on cultural competency for the foster adoptive parents. And so there's a lot of conversation about you have to be empathetic and you have to be flexible and, naturally love the children and agree to support them in their journey. But I don't think there has been enough training on the cultural competency piece in terms of if the children go to a home where the parents do not look like them or they are from a different cultural background, these are some of the things that you absolutely are going to encounter, whatever it is. Hair, lotion, dealing with reactions of children amongst their peers or at school, teacher reactions to the children, because it is different often for our kids. And so maybe it's not invasive enough when it comes to the cultural competency piece in terms of helping families kind of check their own unconscious bias when it comes to race or when it comes to gender. And yeah, it was a very long process and it was invasive because they asked so many questions about relationship, like what was my relationship like with my parents, with my grandparents, with my sibling? What did I think about, growing up not with my biological parents? How did that feel? And I guess it's kind of a bit of a therapy session, which is another issue for Black people. We don't seek out therapy when we should. And we are uncomfortable revealing those areas of ourselves that are vulnerable, where we think we're weak or we're sad or we're less than perfect. And so that could be a barrier. However, for the PS map, and they've changed it in California, we have to just even get to that stage. I mean, it's a formality. If you're applying for a job, if you're applying for a school, you have to answer a bunch of questions. But it just seems like the reality is there are a bunch of children there. We need to keep the children at home when possible. But when they can't remain at home, then people of color have to be willing to endure the questions. You have to get a letter of rec, like from friends and stuff. We have to be willing to endure the process to help.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to ask as well about adoption, and then I want to talk about motherhood, but you made a really difficult decision. And the decision you made was not to maintain contact with your son's sibling group.
Right.
Can you talk about why that was an important decision for you to make?
I was really worried about the birth family interfering with the bond that I was building with him. And I didn't want him to feel like he had a torn loyalty between birth family and me. And I still haven't met his birth mother, but I heard stories about her and I heard stories about the older siblings. And really didn't see where, even if she meant well, I just didn't see where her actions were going to support and uplift the situation. Everybody was already in a bad situation because he wasn't going to be able to be with his birth mother. So we were out the gate, not on the best foot. And I was really trying to smooth that out for him and help him feel wanted and know that he was wanted by them and by me, and being able to provide for him in a way that would give him the best opportunity. And I spent a lot of time thinking about it, and I just really felt like, no, that's not going to be a good idea. And as he gets older, a weekend, a couple of days can undo a lot of stuff because biology is strong. I mean, it definitely is strong. And I just, at every turn, really wanted to make sure he was surrounded by as much positivity as possible.
Do you ever question that decision now?
No. That was, I think, one of the best decisions that I made. So later on, we did get to meet the younger siblings, and that also turned out to be a great decision as well, but not at all. That was a really great decision. And we talk about adoption a lot, and we talk about decisions and choices and how one wrong choice could derail everything that he's worked for. And as he gets older, I think he's beginning to have a better understanding of what that means.
I wanted to talk about your perceptions of motherhood. So I guess before you had August and then after you had August. And one of the things you say in here that is specific to single motherhood and pregnancy, but I thought it's interesting because it actually speaks to the larger issue of motherhood being so white, is that you say white women controlled who could get away with oops pregnancies. And then you talk about like examples of that, like Bristol Palin. But I thought that was really significant because it's so true.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that experience? Like when you think of motherhood in a general context, people generally do not. It's so strange. Like Black women have spent centuries mothering other people's kids.
Yes.
But then when you raise motherhood or you talk about motherhood, it's always within the context of white motherhood.
Yes.
What was that? How did that discovery for you manifest itself? And what was it like once you realized that there was this big, giant gap?
So in the 90s, when Murphy Brown was super popular, like I didn't watch the show for whatever reason. I just never watched it. But when I was writing my memoir and thinking about this very question and kind of looking through like pop culture and my own feelings about motherhood and how they were shaped, and thinking about Claire Huxtable, because like she was mom extraordinaire. That was the mom to be. A lawyer, a career, and be beautiful and be loving and present and all of these wonderful things. And we just didn't have a lot of sort of pop culture role models for motherhood because there was just either or type thing. We were Florida Evans trying to hold the family together as we live in the projects, or Claire Huxtable. And then here's Murphy Brown, who is a professional, has an oops pregnancy, and she becomes someone. She's not even a real person, but she becomes someone that white feminists really hold up as, we can do this and it's okay. And in the same breath, Black women, especially single Black mothers, are seen as welfare queens because in the media, especially during campaign seasons, there always has to be a scapegoat. And somehow we always find ourselves at the bottom being accused of ruining a system, taking all the money, birthing all these children into the world who are going to grow up and be rapists and thieves and all of these. And it's just crazy making. It's like, wow, in the 21st century, pop culture still holds Black motherhood in much lower regard than white motherhood. And we see it in the movies that are made. We see it in like on magazine covers. So it's like all around us. And I don't think I noticed it until I was working on my memoir and then kind of going back and looking at, okay, was there ever a time when Black motherhood was really celebrated? Well, we have, Float is Forever, Michelle Obama. So yeah, she's recent. And she's wonderful and she's great. And I'm happy we have her now, but she's still up there with Claire Huxtable.
Mm-hmm. And she was also targeted. So it wasn't, they had to work to get her to be seen in that
Absolutely.
light, right?
Absolutely.
And I think, what about that idea of invisibility? So that's a big thing that I talk about a lot is that so not only we're not only is motherhood so white in that everything negative about motherhood is equated with Black women. So we're not good mothers because we're loud or aggressive with our kids, or we give them attitude. Like it's those kind of stereotypes, right?
Right.
Or like you said, we're the welfare moms, But there's also the idea of like the actuality of who we are is invisible. And we're just not reflected. And when we are where we're supposed to be reflected, it's, how do I say this without being offensive? It's like, it's like not us as a whole. It's like a part, like, for example, like Blackish.
Okay.
So there's the mom in Blackish, and yes, she's Black, but she's also in the show biracial. Like there's never like this fully Black woman who can just be right and multifaceted and a great mother, great loving mother. And there's still those kind of all those elements of colorism and all these other layers that play into how we are interpreted to the world. And it's frustrating. And how do you manage that?
Yeah. Wow. Sigh first and then go about my day. The invisibility piece, as we know, is real. And I think it's because we have done such a great job of raising other people's kids and been doing it for so long that we have and are taken for granted. And so remember when The Help was made into a movie? And folks were mad about that movie because it was a white woman talking about her experience with these Black women who raised all of these people in this community. And so it's like she was shining a light on them, but it created, I think, mixed feelings for us because it's still this woman. Yes, that's great. You love her and she did all of these wonderful things for your family, but it was at the detriment of her own family. But her own family isn't important because they are just as invisible as she is or as she was. And so it is.
And even their story wasn't their own to tell, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So it's that. It's so my book really is me trying to make us visible. And as Black moms, I mean, we're not a monolith. This is just my experience. I mean, there are varieties of Black mom experiences, but I really wanted to say, hey, there's some of us over here and this is what we think and this is how we live and this is how we parent and this is how we love and this is how we deal with things that are against us. Trying to get an agent was crazy. I think I got rejected by almost 60 agents, and many of them wrote me very beautiful rejection letters. Wow, you're a great writer. This is an important subject, but it's too marginal. Really? Yeah. My experience as a Black mother is too marginal for white mothers because those will be a large part of the consumers of my book and other books on motherhood and parenting. it's too marginal for them because we are invisible and our stories don't matter. Even though at the end of the day, we all want the same exact thing for our kids. But somehow their love is better than ours. I don't know. Their love is stronger than ours. I'm not sure, which takes me back to the loss of Trayvon Martin and all those people who died year after year after year after year. And certainly all the people who were killed before. But for my own racial awakening as a Black mother, every single year, 3-4 times a year, this child was killed, that child was killed. And it's like, hello, we are not invisible. We are here and we need your support.
If you enjoy listening to the show, be sure to subscribe to this podcast so you get automatic updates of new episodes every Tuesday. Also, leave a review and let other people know what you think of the show. Don't forget to follow Woke Mommy Chatter at Woke Mommy on Twitter, on Instagram, and follow along on Facebook at Woke Mommy Chatter. Be sure to visit the Woke Mommy Chatter website at www.wokemommychatter.com to help support the production of the podcast.
Thanks for listening to Woke Mommy Chatter.